Welcome to Wisdom Talk Radio, a collaborative community of explorers in conscious living. Welcome to today's episode of Wisdom Talk Radio. This is where we explore the depths of conscious living and what it truly means to live an expanded life. Join us to be inspired, encouraged, transformed, and to experience a deep sense of joy and possibility. You know, there are many ways into a deeper connection with who you are, into a deep realization of your purpose in being alive, really into how to live your life so that you find a sense of inner peace and that you live your life from that place of flow. And with my guest today, and I'm really excited about this, we're going to take a journey, and it's a journey into how art, in its deepest sense, can serve you as a medium for exploring those profound questions that we all carry in one level or another about our own existence, about our purpose, about life's meaning. I'm Laurie Seymour, host of Wisdom Talk Radio and CEO and founder of the Baca Institute. That is the home of the quantum connection process. And you can go to the Baca Institute to discover your unique connection with the essence of who you are by taking the quantum connection quiz. Why quantum connection? Well, we're each designed to connect directly with Source in our own unique way. And knowing your own style opens a deeper connection for you with the universe. It's really the secret to creating what you truly want in your life. Because who you are is exactly who is needed. So my guest today is Synesthesia Artist and Color Alchemist. That's a mouthful and an intriguing, like, whoa, okay. So this is Heather Eck. She has a unique approach to perceiving, creating, and healing through her artwork. Her background as an HR manager and certified authentic leadership coach, combined with her unique gift of synesthesia. We're going to talk about that, so if you don't know what that is, that's okay, just hang in. This gives her a special skill to communicate the hidden dynamics and solutions to everyday challenges through clairsentience, intuition, and color reading. She is an expert on color, chakras, spirituality, and energy healing. Heather is a renowned and award-winning artist, intuitive, thought leader, spiritual intuitive healer, passionate coach, and facilitator. You just can't wait, right? Her work has been transformed. Her work has been exhibited in more than 25 shows. And I think you, our audience, will be transformed in this conversation with my guest today, Heather Eck. Welcome, Heather.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today.
You are welcome. You're welcome. So, because was a big part of your bio, and some of our audience might not be familiar with what synesthesia is. Could you say something about that? Explain what it is, and well, we'll just start with that. How does this whole piece of synesthesia impact your own way of being an artist?
Mm-hmm. Synesthesia is one of those interesting things that happens in someone's brain where the senses get crossed. So essentially, if you can imagine, when you hear a bit of music, your brain processes it through color or through form or shape. And there's a great movie called Ratatouille that I love. And there's a scene where Remy, the rat or the mouse, is eating a piece of cheese and a strawberry together. And all around his head swirls these beautiful colors and shapes. And he experiences that, divine taste of food through the color and the sensations that he experiences. And that's what happens to me when I listen to music or when I taste something, or even like hearing a day of the week or a month, my brain will sort of see it as a color or a shape or symbol.
Or a symbol. That's interesting
Yeah.
to me because I work with symbols. So say something a little more about that. And I work with
Yes.
color too, and with the symbols. So
Yes, for sure. So, depending on what it is that I'm doing, I will sort of watch in my mind's eye what happens with the taste of something or the sound of something. And so, if I'm listening to music in my mind, it'll start to go up or down or form shapes or squares or circles or different sort of symbols that kind of pop into my mind. And I read and interpret those symbols as part of my artwork to deliver messages for people. So it all sort of comes together through the culmination of the work that I create.
okay, so you've just opened up, you've opened up so much there. In a way, I don't feel like you've answered any of the question. You have. I don't really mean that truly.
Yeah.
But what you've done is you've opened up this whole like, tell me more. What do you mean? How does this work for you? And has this always been true for you? I mean, were you seeing color and shape and form when you were little?
I think, when I look back, I was just thinking about this the other day. There's something that happens where I will sort of feel a sensation in my body, or I will sort of feel like kind of reading somebody's energy. I'll get a feel for, I'm clairsentient too. So I also sort of feel my way into different experiences, but
Yeah.
I will experience people, places, sounds, or different senses through like a sensation or a texture or a feeling. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I was little, I would experience these sensations that felt prickly, like a grape stem. You pluck the grapes off and there's kind of like this pointy little edge
Mm-hmm.
that's stuck there. I would feel almost something like that texture if something felt uncomfortable to me,
Uh-huh.
or I'd feel something soft or smooth if it felt comfortable. And when I was younger, I would lay on the floor in my bedroom with a big sketch pad and I would draw the music that I was listening to for what it looked like or what it felt like to me on a big pad of paper. So I do feel like it was there for me when I was younger, but I didn't know what it was. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think that it was unique to me. I thought everybody had those feelings.
Actually, everybody does have one aspect or another of that sentience.
Hmm.
And it's just being able to recognize, first of all, what that is.
Right. Yeah.
So I could see you there, on your floor as a child, drawing away and how wonderful. Uh, What you described as those sensations are what I talk about as the feeling body. And it's not emotion, but it is
Hmm.
sensation.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
that's,
go
oh, go
ahead.
ahead. Oh, I was going to say that's true for me when I'm working on a painting too, where I will sort of feel my way through what the painting needs, or if I'm working on a portrait for a particular person, what I'm sort of receiving from that person energetically, and then translating that onto paper or canvas for them through the color that I also see for them too. So
Ah,
it's kind of
okay.
like the bringing it all together.
Wow. Wow. So there's so much in what you're saying. I'm thinking about the word embodied and how there's a lot of people focus on the importance of embodiment. And it sounds like you are working with that from such an intimate space. You're not having to be embodied or learn about embodiment. You're operating from that place of tracking what it is you're experiencing.
Yes, I think that's a really good way to put it. Like if I'm sitting across from somebody to do their portrait for them, I'm
Mhm.
sort of channeling, experiencing, feeling, and then communicating back out to them what it is that's coming through for me.
Mm,
And if I'm doing a portrait for them, I'm sort of explaining along the way, here's what I see, here's what the paint is doing, here's the color meaning. And then kind of, does this make sense for you in terms of what you might be going through at the moment or what
mhm,
they're experiencing, and how I sort of interpret it through, the different vocabulary that I'm learning to speak
mhm.
with whatever is coming through.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And so are you doing portraits of people or are you doing other kinds of non-portraiture sort of work.
Yeah, they're more like abstract kind of portraiture um,
Okay.
that comes through in like the shapes or the forms or the things
Mhm.
that the paint sort of leaves behind for
Yeah,
them.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And how do they respond to it?
It's really interesting. It's sometimes very emotionally. I think one of the things that people, we're so hard on ourselves sometimes, and I think that when you're able to sort of see your spirit represented in a portrait, I think they sort of confront their own radiance, if you will, and sort of see
Mhm.
themselves in a different way and go, "Oh, wow, that's beautiful." And I feel like their spirit sort of connects with something in there that they hadn't been able to put words to or haven't seen themselves that way. So oftentimes it's a very emotional, intimate sort of response that's beautiful that way.
Mhm. That's so beautiful too, the way you just described it. They connect with their own radiance.
Yeah,
Because the truth is that every person carries that, and we need to both remember it for ourselves and then to be able to open to it,
absolutely.
receive it, and express with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for a lot of us, we lose it or we lose sight of it
We
and
forget it, is how
we
I'm thinking
forget
of
it.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. It's like a reminder, it's like I feel like sometimes when I turn a painting around to somebody, it's like a reminder and then they go, "Oh, that's me." And there's something so powerful about being able to see yourself expressed that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you also very much work with the chakra system, and I'm wondering how you use the chakra system as, and maybe you could even touch on, because there may be people that don't know what that is, and that's very well true. Um, if you could touch on that, and then how you use that as a framework for your own creative process.
hmm Yeah, the chakras are so interesting to me because I associate and interpret the emotional, spiritual, or physical sort of place of dwelling for somebody through the color that I see for them. And so, if I happen to see blue for somebody, then I know that that person might be dwelling or trying to heal their throat. They might be trying to work on communicating something about themselves or uncovering a truth about something. And so the color of the chakras will indicate to me where that person is working on improving something about themselves.
Okay. It- so it's more that sense of where they're working, what they're working on, as opposed to maybe where their gifts lie.
Yeah, for me, it tends to be where they have experienced pain or where they're working on developing an aspect of themselves that hasn't, it's not currently balanced. So I tend to
Right.
see, I guess that's where too, like the clairsentience comes in. I tend to sort of experience somebody where I use the word dwelling a lot. Like, where do you spend a
Mhm.
lot of your time? Like, for me, it's my heart. I spend a lot of time in my heart center. And
Mhm.
so, if I find or encounter somebody who's experiencing grief, I'll see them dwelling in a place of grief. And so that's sort of the color that I'll pick up for them and then offer them messages or healing through that conversation and that piece of art.
Interesting. How do people receive that? I mean, you talked about this seeing it and feeling their own radiance, but the sense of the healing process of that, I'm curious about.
Mhm. Yeah. It was so interesting to me too. Like, I think we just talked about it. People sort of need to be reminded about things about themselves. And
Mhm.
so, for example, I just did an in-person spirit portrait for someone the other day, and they were leaving one job and moving to another job. And what I picked up on was that they were sort of dwelling in this space of feeling like they were lacking a place of creativity in their lives, and they were feeling a lack of love um, like a universal higher love. So their
Mhm.
colors came through to me as pink and orange, meaning they were really kind of sitting in a place of feeling like there was more that they could be contributing to the world. And funny enough, I didn't know at the time that he was transitioning from one job to another, but he said he felt like he wanted to do more and he was looking for a new opportunity and he felt like he was just kind of stuck there. So
Yeah.
it was interesting to sort of see where he was and then to talk to him about exploring areas of his life where he could let in more creative expression and to be able to just kind of surrender to this internal urge to go out and do something different.
Yes, yes. I love that because I'm very much with a sense of moreness, like that, and the people I tend to draw are the people that know there's more. They might not know how to get to it or how to express it or even what that is. There's
Hmm.
that internal kind of urge for more. I even with a colleague this year did a retreat in Barcelona called the Moreness Retreat.
I love that. Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I think a lot of us know that there's more. There's more to life. There's more we could be doing. There's just something that's sort of missing that we need more of.
Yeah.
And that was exactly it for me too. I felt like I had gone really far in my corporate career, but there was something missing and I didn't know what it was. And for me, it was making that turn back to art and creative expression.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
And for me also creative expression is that highest expression of that highest energetic expression of who we are.
Yeah.
And if we're
Yeah.
and if we're in that mode, if we're working with that energy with our own creative intelligence, you can't really you don't get sick
Hmm.
because it's really that creative movement of the life force.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it sounds like your work is really supporting that.
Yes. I think it's supporting for me personally, and then being able to share and show that to other people. I think that's where the healing comes in because I think when we come into this world, we are meant to be creative, expressive beings. And somewhere along the line, we lose that. Or we just sort of like, for me, I just packed it up in a box and stuffed it way down for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you get to a certain point in your life and you think, I've got to do something different here. And you start to kind of unpack that box and go, wait, what was I like as a kid? What was I really drawn to? And then you kind of start to go down that path. So I like to help people remember that part of themselves.
I love that. That's just so beautiful. And it seems like your work also really goes into the aspects of the unseen world. Um, we could talk about that in so many different ways. I like to think of it from the standpoint of physics of the field of potentiality.
Hmm.
And it seems like you are in some way tapping into that. Is that true?
I think so. A lot of the work that I create is sort of associated with the things that you can't see and just this idea of the bigger world around us and the unexplainable things that sort of happen. I find that when I try to control too much of the painting itself, that it goes bananas for me. I really have to get out of the way. And when I do, really wonderful things start to happen on the canvas or in my mind or just the story that comes out of the piece where I go, I have no explanation for how it ended up this way, but it did. And so here's what's beautiful about that.
So a couple of things there. One is that
Mhm.
you're saying you have to surrender.
Yeah.
You can't control it. You can't have an
Yeah.
idea and say, okay, this is what I'm going to produce.
Hmm.
When you surrender that there's a whole bigger energy that can come through you. But then when you say to someone, I don't know how to explain this, but I suspect there is a part of you once it is done, you do know how to explain. Am I making that up?
No, I think that's spot on. I think that's spot on. I was working on a portrait for somebody and I got in my own head about it. It was for somebody I thought was important. And so I thought, I've got to get this right for them. I think I did 9 portraits. I think I did this painting 9 times.
Like
And
trying to
each
get it right?
trying to get it right. Exactly. And every single painting turned out nearly identical. And,
Huh.
I stepped back and I kind of looked at it and went, okay, what's the big picture here? What is the message here? What am I trying to avoid having to tell this person? Because there's oftentimes messages or things that come through that are urgent or important or just something that they need to know. And in this case, it was related to a creative project that this person was working on that I thought was going to, I think intuitively thought it was going to be an uncomfortable conversation. And so I avoided, I avoided that like the plague and phoned a friend and said, please help me. What am I doing here? What's the
Right.
bigger message? And so we talked about what that looked like.
Mhm.
And when I delivered the message to her, she got it and it wasn't uncomfortable and
Mm.
it was what she needed to hear.
Okay.
So, I ended up sending her all of the portraits because they were all part of her story.
Mhm.
But what I learned was that I really had to get out of the way. I really had to just let it be what it wanted to be and to not fight or
Mhm.
resist whatever it was, but to truly just surrender. And that if I really kind of sat back and meditated on it and gave it space to be, that I did know exactly what to say to her. I was just resistant to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we get in our own way. I mean, that's part of life. And part of life is also learning the feeling. So that might be what I'd love to for you to speak to, because you're such a feeling, and I don't mean emotion again, feeling
Mhm.
person. You're very connected with your own sensations. So how do you know, actually there's two questions here. How do you know when you're getting in your own way from a feeling level?
Mhm. I feel it in my stomach that I'm trying to make it be a thing. And I will sort of feel I think that the sensation that I have is that if it's fluid, if it's open, it feels expansive. If
Hmm.
it is restrictive or tight or makes me feel like a little itchy, then I know that I'm trying to get in the way of something. Um, and there's almost like this switch that I can notice in my
Hmm.
brain where I just sort of like let go. And then I know, okay, I went over that hump of needing it to be
Hmm. Hmm.
and surrendered to whatever it is.
So the corollary question to that is one that is really important to me about the feeling of truth, or
Mm,
having discernment to be able to know when we're going inside to ask something, when we're going inside to receive inner guidance, being able to know the feeling of what truth feels like. And I don't mean truth from the outside world, but that knowing of how truth feels in your own body. Like
hmm.
when you're on and when you're not. When you've
Yeah.
gone, oops, yeah, I've gone into that glorious personality of mine, but I've left that connection.
Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
speak to that? I mean, because I don't know if you ever use that word of truth or think about it that way.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I hadn't really thought about it that way, but hearing you ask the question makes me think about the sensation that I get through chills or um, sort of like a crown spreading of, yes, that feels right. Um, And my spiritual teacher is always reminding me especially, to not to make any decisions, which I know sounds counterintuitive, but to just sort of like let whatever has to happen happen and ask for guidance and ask for wisdom and insight, but make no decisions. Let it just kind of come to be. Sort of like, again, surrendering to
Yeah,
what's the right thing here.
interesting. So it's not really, excuse me,
Yeah.
it's not really not making a decision exactly. It sounds like it's more allowing a decision, allowing
Yeah.
something, and it's not giving up something. It's adding to.
It's that, yeah, I think that's exactly right. It's that feeling of allowing or expansiveness and not trying to sort of control
Mhm.
what I think. I think that that's the piece for me that feels not true is when I try to control.
Yes. And that's true for all of us. So if we could really listen to what you're saying, and how in your highest creative work, when you try and control, and we do that by, in our old patterned ways. But when you start to do that, it doesn't work.
Hmm.
Get in
That's
your
right.
way.
Yeah. Yeah. I notice that in almost all areas of my life, not just in the art making or,
Right.
but
Mhm.
it really in everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah. And as a creative person, meaning not in the smaller way I think of creative, because every all of us are creative,
Yeah.
but as a person who's working with art mediums, with color and shape and form and expression, um, it feels like it's even more important for you.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I notice that when I have surrendered to allowing the paint to do the talking or
Mhm.
allowing, the messages to come through in their most clear, effective way that I feel the most authentic about what I'm able to contribute to
Mhm.
somebody. And to be able to say, like, this is what I feel, does this make sense to you? And to be able to affirm for them
Yeah.
the sensation, the message, the meaning, that
Mhm.
all of that coming through is as truthful, as loving, as authentic, and as open as it can possibly be.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
How do people find you? I mean, what it's such an unusual thing you do.
Mhm.
How do people find you?
A lot of people will find me on through referrals, really, for people who've had experiences with me.
Mhm.
Then they'll refer their friends a lot to kind of go, well, you've got to meet this person. She's going to tell you what your colors are and she's going to do a painting for you. But I'm most active on Instagram and Facebook, and that's how people find me usually.
Yeah, yeah. And that makes sense. Visual mediums
Yeah.
were going to be your thing.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
And I'm curious, like how you're taking this forward. So, what kinds of projects or ideas that you're excited to explore in your work.
Yeah. There's a lot. I feel like there are so many little avenues of work that I want to go down. One of them for me that's most important, and I'm still, I think because I'm trying to control it a little bit, is being able to bring artwork to spaces that have experienced trauma or negative experiences, to be able to provide them with work that is healing through the color and through the messages that
Mm,
have come through. So that's a big one for me.
wow,
Yeah.
that's huge. Are you
Yeah, I'd love to do
doing
that.
anything with that? I mean, as soon as you say it, there's all these pictures that come to me.
Oh,
Of
my ear just popped too.
ah,
Yeah, one of
so
those little
let's
taps.
go down this road a little bit. Are
Yeah,
are
that's a
you
big one.
are you doing anything with that now? I mean,
No, that is still sort of percolating in the cloud a little
mhm,
bit and trying to
mhm,
figure out what that looks like. I've gone down the path of creating a series of work that promotes gun safety and to help to honor victims of gun violence. And so that's another big avenue that's sort of part of the healing spaces piece.
mhm, mhm.
So that's again something that's sort of out there, and helping people sort of understand the ways that art and color can be nurturing and healing in our lives.
Ah, so yeah, because the picture that immediately was coming to me was in schools.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
exactly right.
was of
Yeah.
you creating works. You need a sponsor or sponsors. And I'm serious. I'm really
Yeah.
serious. So I'm putting this out. I'm putting this out through the airwaves here. You need sponsors, a sponsor or sponsors that's going to realize what's possible here and the potential of bringing in this kind of transformative expression into the
Hmm.
physical space.
Yeah.
So if you had a sponsor, would you be willing to do that for a school?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's a big vision that I'm getting chills now head to toe. And I've been able to go into even my son's elementary school and help them with a mural, which was wonderful. And I loved that. But to be able to take that a step further and offer healing for spaces would just be incredible. And that's right up my alley. Yeah.
Yeah, I can feel it. I can feel
Mhm.
it. Yeah, it's going down my arms, across my shoulders there.
Yeah.
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 So how does that work? How does that work? How does that shift, that transformative process happen? What's
In
your
terms,
understanding of that?
yeah, that's
In
a
terms
great
of
question.
color, particularly.
Particularly in color, I think that our spirits, our minds, our bodies sort of respond to art and color in ways that we're not even aware of.
Mhm.
And I think when we can intentionally use color and shape and form and I think just even the intention behind a piece, we are offering healing to someone. So one of the things that I really want to do is to help educate people about the different ways that color elevates our lives and our experiences because we're not always aware of it. You know, we're attracted to color and it
Right.
communicates something, or
Mhm.
we're repelled by a certain color and it's telling us something too. And
Yes.
so being able to put healing elevating colors up in spaces that need it to help uplift and just calm and provide a nurturing, tranquil space can be really healing for people.
Yeah.
And I don't think that, we always take that into consideration in places like schools or hospitals or,
Mhm.
places where we really need that. We really need that.
Yeah, I interviewed someone a while ago who was bringing, she's a designer, and she was bringing her work into spaces in hospitals. She had been through a journey with breast cancer, and how her whole environment in creating that consciously impacted her whole process.
Yeah.
And because I love the going beyond the healing aspect
Hmm.
into what's next, what's our potential, what's opening up.
Hmm.
I feel like you're in that space too. I mean, your
Yeah.
focus may be in the way you speak about it as healing, but there's a next piece after the healing.
Yeah.
Tell
Yeah.
me about that.
I think I'm still working on that, to be honest. I think that's maybe where I'm still sort of trying to connect the two together in a way that allows people to find that expansiveness within themselves. And
Mhm.
one of the things I'm doing is holding workshops for people to dig into a particular chakra center and a particular color and to understand what it's like to work within the sacral chakra, for example. Like how do you
Mhm.
connect to
Mhm.
your own sense of creative expression and emotion? And do you even
Mhm.
invite the color orange into your life? And if you don't, what is that communicating to you? So what happens when you start to invite that feeling, that energy, that high vibration? What happens when you allow that color in to help move you from a stuck
Mhm.
place to a place of movement, you know?
And if people are in the place of movement, how can they work with color?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, for example, if you're somebody who is currently in a space of grieving and you're in a feeling of loss, you might be sort of dwelling in the gray. You might be living in that space of the in between, and that can bring down your energy level and that can make you feel physically low, spiritually low, or just sort of stuck. So
Mhm.
when you work with the color orange, where you're energizing, your whole body, the whole self, the mind, body, and spirit. That can certainly help elevate just through smelling orange or wearing orange or painting with orange. It activates something within you that allows you to express and sort of get unstuck in that place of grief,
Mhm.
or just to help you just move up to another level of
Mhm.
going, okay, I'm going to try this today. And it just sort of makes you feel better.
Do you recommend that people try out different colors and try working with wearing different colors?
Yeah, for sure. It's really fun if you kind of just scan through your closet and go, what's the color I wear the most? Maybe for somebody it's pink, and you go, okay, well, what's pink about? Well, pink means you're trying to activate this higher love in your life. You're trying to
Mm,
invite the inner knowing of unconditional love, of unconditional acceptance, and just the feeling of being provided for by source, by the universe. And so if you're wearing a lot of that color, you're really working on trying to bring that in. So it's interesting to know that, because then you can kind of say, okay, so if I'm trying to activate that, where am I feeling stuck? Well, you might be feeling stuck in your root because you
mm,
might be somebody who has a feeling of a lack of stability or a lack of financial security, or maybe your relationships aren't where you want them to be. So then you can start to work on healing in that area too.
uh-huh. So really, you really go in all sorts of different directions with this.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot that you can play with when it
Yeah.
comes. Yeah.
And if you're working at a level of, how can I describe it? Where that's not so much coming from, you're not so much coming from the place of being stuck, but of, hey, I'm really exploring what's possible.
hmm
How do you bring that into being?
Yeah. I think a lot of it is finding a place of stillness to get quiet and receive information. Because
Hmm.
I know for me, I'm constantly being communicated to.
Uh-huh.
Through my guides or through the universe or through license plates, whatever it is, I'm always receiving messages, but
Mhm.
I'm often too busy to pay attention to what it is.
Yeah.
And so right now I am sort of feeling in the place of I need more information about a thing that I want to do. What does it
Uh-huh.
look like? But I
Right.
really have to carve out space each day to get quiet and kind of go, okay, what is it that I need to know in order to move through
Absolutely.
this spot?
Absolutely. And
Yeah,
it's so that you can, because that guidance is always available.
right.
And it's not like you have to wait for a sign from the universe. It's more that you have to be willing, like you just said, of carving out the space and the time just to get quiet,
hmm
to get quiet. And so you can receive what is being shown to you, receive what's being given, receive
Yes.
what a part of you even may already know.
Yeah. I think that's totally true for many of us.
Mhm.
And a lot of times we just are so busy being busy that we haven't given ourselves that time, even just a couple minutes a day.
Even just a couple minutes a day, absolutely.
Yeah.
And to tune into what those sensations are and to realize, I love so much that you spoke about that because we don't realize that there's a message there too, that there's something for us to pay attention to, if only we would.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. There's so much inner knowing that I think we all have that we just sort of tune out. So it's like, let's dial
Mhm.
back in. Let's tune back in and figure out what's actually happening in our in and around us that's offering us messages in some way.
Yeah, and showing us the way. And it's not from something else. It is our own connection, and it is part of our blueprint, it's part of our makeup that we get
Yeah.
to have this.
Yeah. And it's pretty awesome. It's
That's
pretty
pretty
awesome when you tune
awesome.
in.
Pretty awesome. I love that. Thank you. Well, Heather, how can people best reach you, find you?
Yeah, I'm very active on Instagram at Heathereck Artist and on my website at heathereck.com/thank you. I have a bunch of freebies out there for
Oh,
folks to learn about
okay.
color and to connect with me about all sorts of different workshops and tools and things.
Great. I will make sure that that goes into the show notes too.
Thank you. Yeah.
Any last, whatever, words about color that you want to leave us with?
Yeah, thank you. I feel like we are all able to communicate through color. It's a language that we all speak. So when you are going about your day, just sort of notice the colors that are around you and then look it up. look it up and ask, I've encountered 6 people with a green shirt today. What is that about? Because those
Oh,
people
I've got
showed
green
up
on.
to, yeah, I love that. Because you showed up to offer love today.
Mm,
And, and I showed up to offer intuition and inner knowing. And
mhm.
so we're constantly communicating to each other in those ways. And it's a really powerful tool when you learn to read it.
It is powerful, and we don't, we forget, we
Mhm.
forget
Yeah.
because we're not paying attention. That's all it is we're
All.
just not paying attention.
Love that.
So thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here, Heather, and all that you have offered to us. Thank you.
Thank you for having me today.
You're welcome. And thank you to our audience for being with us today. Without you, why would we do this? But I'd love for you to join us here regularly for more wisdom, discovery, and illumination. And remember, you can find us on your favorite place to listen to your podcasts. We are also on YouTube, so it's a great way. You'll see Heather right in her studio, which is so fun to see, all her paints behind her and her easels and a painting right behind her, which I want to see more up close of. And a request that I have is that if you loved listening today, please do leave us a review, because when you do, that helps more people discover us. And what does that do? That helps, I believe, to transform the world with these kinds of perhaps new ways of thinking, new ways of encountering the world and encountering what we'd like to think of as reality and expand that. And for more for you in terms of your own quantum connection, take the quantum connection quiz over at the Baca Institute. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us here at Wisdom Talk Radio. We wish you well in your conscious explorations. For more information and to join in the conversation, our website is wisdomtalkradio.com or at Wisdom Talk Radio on Facebook.